Hello, podcast listeners. This is Ed Franklin with the Ed Franklin No Limits podcast. It seems like it's been forever since I've done a podcast, and because it almost has been. So, again, Ed Franklin No Limits podcast. You can reach me at edfranklin.nolimits@gmail.com. If you have a guest or you'd like to be a guest on my podcast, shoot me an email. Let's chat about it and see if we can't get you on here and talk about life, talk about whatever you want, sales, business, marketing, kids, whatever you want to talk about, we get you on here. So I apologize for being so long since I've been on a podcast, but a couple things about that. One, I just don't want to do a podcast that's just reiterating or regurgitating things I've done before. So I like to try to put some thought into these podcasts. And with that being said, some of this stuff that I'm going to talk about today is kind of regurgitating or stuff I've talked about before. And the reason for that is I want you to get the point, and I want you to get off your ass, and I want you to be the best version of yourself that I know you can be, and I hope you know you can be. So I went to, right before my last podcast, I was getting ready to go to New Orleans to see my daughter and her family. And we did that during the vacation, during the Thanksgiving vacation week, and we had a fantastic time. I love seeing my daughter. I like my daughter. I love her. Of course, I love all my children, and I like all my kids. So I like spending time with them, especially as individuals, because they're getting a little older, and we have better conversations. It's not so geared towards what I want them to do, but more what they're doing. And I'm excited about their success. And I just love my kids so much, and I love seeing my grandkids, of course, and kind of just chatting. And this trip was about 10 days. It was a little bit long for a trip, but we saved a bunch of money and by staying the extra 10 days and not traveling on busy days. So the only thing that sucked about the whole trip is the weather was so different than it was here that we got a little bit of head colds. I got a little bit of a cold. It lasted a bit longer than I wanted it to. When I got back, it seemed like everybody was sick. And I was coughing so bad last week, just from whatever I had, that I just couldn't get through a podcast without choking to death. So I waited, and I'm glad I waited because I got a lot of things to talk about today. And I actually took notes, which I don't normally do, but there's some things I didn't want to forget about. In the immortal words of Joey Tribbiani from Friends, the cold has reached my special place. It is very cold right now, and I'm not a big fan of cold weather. I'm one of those sissy Californians that likes 75, 80-degree weather where I can wear shorts every day, and that has not been the case the last few days. So I wouldn't say I'm struggling with it. It just irritates me a little bit that I don't, that it's not as warm as I'd like it to be. But it is kind of reminds me of the holidays. We just decorated last weekend and all that good stuff. So the first thing I want to tell you, I was going to do a podcast in New Orleans, but I just could not get the computer stuff to work. The technology was not working for me. And I, of course, was going to talk about Thanksgiving, about being grateful. And, I talk about that every year and on my podcast. Excuse me. And, but it's a big deal. And I love the fact that people remember that they have to be thankful and grateful for things in their life. We have so much to be thankful for in our life, even if things aren't perfect right now or whatever. I mean, I'm sitting in this nice warm house on this nice computer, being able to communicate with you on this podcast. I have good friends. I'm around good people. I spent some time with some good people today and the last, 5 or 6 days, which sparked some of these topics that we're going to bring up. But I think that what we probably need to do as humans is be more thankful all year instead of just waiting until Thanksgiving. And I think for the most part, people are grateful for things. But I mean, really look at your life and go, you know what? I'm glad I'm very healthy right now. After being sick, I feel great today. Things are turning around. It's, I have a new job. Job's going great. I work with some awesome people that are giving me a lot of great advice, and they're younger people, and it's just fun hanging out with them because I get to hear some very positive things. They're very upbeat. So it's really cool. So I have so much to be thankful for, and I hope you do too. And I'm going to do my best to try to remember that every week of the year, that we need to be thankful. So before I get started, obviously I've already started, but something yesterday, I was just I kind of came home. I was going to do a podcast last night. It was freezing when I got home. I took out a pad of paper and just said, let me just kind of outline what I'm going to talk about today. And I was just thumbing through TikTok, and this guy comes on, and he's talking about um, that he lost his wife recently. And everybody's kind of like, oh, in the audience. And he says, but wait a second. He says, he was talking about 5 years ago when he was with his wife in the same auditorium getting an award for something. And it was like, there's an athlete, I think he was a football player. And somebody that he was talking to, or somebody that was getting up to talk on stage, had lost their wife. And he was kind of devastated him for a minute. And he's sitting there with his beautiful wife, and she's young and all these things. And here, 5 years later, he's up there talking about losing his wife from some weird disease. And it just caught my eye. So I listened to the rest of it. And he said a couple things that I've kind of talked about in the past, about things happening to you or around you or in your, scope of stuff. And he said, death happens in life. Bad things happen in life sometimes. Death, we lose relatives and brothers and sisters and things like that. And he says, death happens in life. It doesn't happen to life. It's not, these things are going to come about, and there's nothing we can control. Sometimes the person that passes away can control it, but we really don't have any control over that. So we have to live and enjoy life. And his whole point was that every day we need to really wake up in the morning and enjoy the people we're hanging out with, and make those phone calls and make those emails, and just kind of keep connected with people that we love. And this trip to New Orleans, it's kind of a pain because I have to drag two kids with me. I don't have to drag them. I don't have to take them, but I do. One's 15, so he's easy, and I have a 8-year-old, 9-year-old. She was 8 when we left. She's 9 now, and not that she's bad to take with me. It's just something I need to worry about, right? I have this little girl. I want to make sure I'm holding on to her. I want to make her comfortable in the plane. We played, I think on the way back, we played hangman. We played tic-tac-toe, and it's probably something I wouldn't have done. I didn't sit with my wife because I sat with her and she sat with Carson. So, and we could have skipped the trip. I mean, my daughter would have understood. It wasn't an inexpensive trip by any means. It still cost a lot of money, but we did save some money, but not enough to, But, someone said to me before the trip, they said, Ed, you need to go. You just need to go to see your daughter. You just don't see her enough. You only see her every 2 years. It's not enough. And, every 2 years at that point. And I said, you're right. Whether the money, I can make more money. I can do things to cut back. I can do a lot of different things, but I needed to go and see her. And my daughter and I are very much alike in a lot of respects. And I like that. I like watching her operate at a high level. And I like to see the things that I kind of, she reminds me of me so much at her age. And her husband's great. We had great conversations, and it was so worth the trip. And we'll manage whatever. If it's a burden money wise, we'll just figure it out. But I think you need to make those calls and make those trips and make those things. And one of the things, my son lives in Texas, and I have not seen him. He came out here this year, I think, and I saw him a couple of times. I really want to go see his family next, so he's the next one on the list. Then I want to get to Portland to see my daughter Paige's family, and she's actually due with a baby in a couple of weeks. So everything's so exciting. And I guess when I saw that TikTok, it was just so pointed that I had to bring that up, that we need to, if you have, I lost my sister this year, and we hadn't spoken in a few years, and I obviously regret not speaking to her. It doesn't matter what the terms or what the details were. The fact is that I didn't speak to her before she's gone now. And, it just isn't right. We should have spoken, and, whether we had differences or not, we should have at least. Goddamn, if we would have yelled at each other, it would have been better than not talking to her. So, anyway, just a little point, I hope that's not a sad thing to you, but really, goddamn, see your kids, see your grandkids, see that friends, go to lunch with that person, whatever. So just wanted to say that. We were at an event, me and two of my coworkers were at an event today that was okay. It was a luncheon for one of the networking groups or trade groups that we belong to. and didn't get a lot out of it, but we did get a couple leads and met a couple people that that could help us in the future, and we can help them in the future. So, those things I think are important too in business. You have to make those sacrifices and go to those lunches and things like that. Now, it sounds like we just went to lunch and had a great time, but it's also, I had other things to do, and so did my two coworkers. So I was glad I was able to convince them to attend this event, and it was good. So let's get started now. So I can't stop reiterating time and time again about what my kind of basis in this podcast is, and my public speaking and things like that. And it's really about you being selfish and taking care of yourself and getting up every morning and spending that first half an hour doing something for you so you can be the best provider that you can. Now, I mean provider, I don't mean that you have to be a parent, but you might have a parent like me, or you might have a brother or sister or aunt or uncle or mom or dad that you're taking care of. And in order for you to do that at a high level, you need to be at a high level yourself. So I know it's the same message. I apologize, but I'm so committed at the same time to try and convince you that how the magnitude of how important this is. It's funny because I'll listen to motivational people on TikTok pieces, or I listen to them on Facebook videos, small pieces. And it doesn't matter if it's Joe Rogan or I don't even know a couple of the guys' names, Tony Robbins or Simon Sinek or whatever. They're always talking about really the same thing. It's kind of the same message we're all putting out there for you. And I hope you hear it 100 times a day and it lodges in your brain and you do something about it, and not just continue to do like I do sometimes and just say, I'll do it then, I'll do it then. We should have this message of love every month, every day of our life, the love we have for ourselves, the love we have for the people around us. And if we have some hate or some not love, I guess, we should turn that into love somehow. There's everybody you meet, I've said this a million times, knows something you don't know. They have a value. 1 in 400 trillion is the odds that you're going to be born. So if you don't think you have an intrinsic value in life, you're absolutely 100% wrong. You have a value to somebody, you have a value to society, and you have a value to the world. The odds are too thin for you to be here without something to give back. We were talking about, I had a really good conversation with a good friend of mine that I hadn't seen in a long time. And he was telling me about an instance where his brothers and he had an opportunity to get together, have a fire, and they were going to smoke some cigars and just kind of hang out with their dad. And their dad's in his late 60s, I think he told me, just a little bit older than me. And they took the opportunity to do that. And they all came to one place and they had a fire and they smoked cigars and they laughed and they had this really good time. And I said, I won't mention his name because he may not want me to mention it. I said, do you ever look for heroes in your family? I mean, we always have these, we're always being told who our heroes are. And it could be an athlete or, I don't know, I'm not a politician, I don't use any of those, but maybe there is out there somebody's hero. And we're never looking for heroes like in our circle of friends, our circle of influence. And I think that they're there, and I think we need to be looking for those. I very often refer to now it was hot, and now I'm hot, so I got to turn on a fan, but I'm in a warm room. I think I refer to my children as my heroes sometimes, and the reason being is what I put them through, going through 2 divorces, and then their mom might have had a divorce. They've had to navigate some shit, right? Some stuff that they shouldn't have had to navigate because of the stupid adults at the time, and that we couldn't get our lives together, or pick good mates, or whatever the reason is. It doesn't really matter at this point. They've had to overcome a lot of things that I didn't have to overcome as a kid. And I look at how successful my kids are, and they're all different levels of success right now, but they're all doing really well, and they all have goals and dreams, and they're chasing those things. I mean, those are heroes to me. These are these kids that only had the information that I gave them and whatever they learned in society, and they're out there killing it in life. And God, I wish I could go through every kid, and one of these days I just might do that, because I could tell you so much special stuff about every child I have. And having 8 kids, the odds that I would be able to even have this conversation with you, there's one in a gazillion, right? Have my kids always been perfect? No, of course not. And I know yours aren't too, or either. But by the same token, I see the the heroic effort that they make on a daily basis. And now they're raising children, and now they understand a little bit more about what was going on. And I don't have my parents with me anymore. My stepdad passed away. My dad passed away when I was 19. My mom passed away in 1997. But this guy I was talking to that had this fire, I said, "You know how much of a hero your dad was?" And I tell you, if I could tell you the story of this guy, how he came over from another country, from 2 countries that he tried to be successful in, and ended up in the U.S. and just kicked ass. And he has these great kids that are doing marvelous things, and they have degrees. And the odds that he was going to make it coming over here, I mean, just crazy. So, in addition to the 1 in 400 trillion, he came over from another country and was successful. I have a son-in-law whose parents came over here from another country and have been, successful in their own right. And now the sons, I should say, are successful. So, man, you shouldn't have to look too far for heroes. If you just look at your friends and kids and cousins and uncles and moms and dads and all these people in your immediate circle, there's your heroes. And there's another hero that you probably don't look at enough, and that's you. You need to look at some of the stuff that you've overcome. And I know every one of you out there has overcome something that you probably didn't think you could overcome, and you've done it. And God, I'd love to. I find so many people that listen to my podcast that I didn't even think listen to my podcast. They'll say to me, I'll see them at the store or whatever, and say, "Oh my God, Ed, I listened to your podcast about this," and I'm like, "Really?" Very surprised. And yeah, I just think that if I could talk to every one of my listeners and draw that heroism out of them that they've been through, the stuff that they've gotten over, and it'd just be the most crazy show ever. It would just be amazing to do that, because we really don't give ourselves enough credit. And I just had a note down here that says, why don't we ever look for heroes in the mirror in the morning? Why aren't we looking at that and saying, it's the old Stewart thing from Saturday Night Live: "You're good enough, you're great enough, you're whatever enough," and you are enough, and you are enough to be successful and get the things done, that you really want to do. I was talking to my coworkers today, and I was telling them about, when you look at people that are super successful, like athletes, especially athletes, and then I'll tell you why I say especially athletes. The people that are super successful and that I know in my life are very focused on 1 or 2 things that they do on a regular basis. They're not worried about paying the bills or watching the kids or cleaning the house or doing the yards. They either have other people to do that or they pay somebody to do it. And athletes get very much like that, to a fault, I think, because they get to a point where they're such little brats sometimes, that they just want everything done for them. And as they get older, obviously they have more responsibilities and things. And I don't know if they're concentrating on their goal as much as they used to. As much as you can, hate Tom Brady, I guess, you can see that what's happened with this divorce, as far as I'm concerned, that it's attached another thing to his mind that he never really had to worry about before. And it's reflecting in his play. And that could be a team thing. It could be whatever. I'm not an expert when it comes to football, but there's no doubt that whatever he's going through now in his relationship with Giselle, or whatever her name is, it's definitely affected his concentration and his discipline, I think. So, Tony Robbins used to talk about Einstein and said the reason he was a genius is because he could focus only on math. He would not. He wasn't much of a social person, things like that. He just really focused on math, and that's all he focused on. And I tell you, some of the greatest people out there have a little, their mind's a little fucked up. Like, that's all they can do is concentrate on one thing. I don't agree that people are multitaskers. I think it's hard to do 2 things at once. I don't think you're ever good at it if you do that. But I would say task jumping is something that parents especially are very good at, where they'll get, they get a kid up, then they get them ready, then they get ready, then they do this, and they make them breakfast, and they make them lunch, and they get them to school, then they go to work, then they kind of jump from task to task all day. And I think it hurts our concentration on the things we need to be focused on the most. And if that's money you need to make, for your family, then that's what you need to be focusing on. So, so let's talk about you. I went and talked to some people this week and last week about business. And in addition to that, these people they run organizations that have business people in those organizations. So they oftentimes, when I was running the chamber, I'd have a hard time finding speakers, for instance, to come and speak to a group of business people. And it didn't have to be always business driven. It could be about a lot of different things. And I kind of put that out there since I've done some research and I've done some practice and I've done some, studying and I have a speech written and I want to get out there and do more public speaking, but I don't want to I want it to be pretty simple. I wanted to keep it really simple and just talk about the people that I'm talking to. And it kind of goes back to that focusing on yourself, getting in the right place so you can help the people around you and do a better job at the task at hand. And I was kind of irritated, to be honest with you, that they felt like I kind of got the feeling that they didn't feel that that was important or that I was important or that I'm relevant or I would do a good job speaking. And although I've gotten good reviews back from the times I have spoke, I necessarily couldn't convince them of that now. So with that being said, though, because I will be so focused on this next year, in addition to my job and my podcast, I want to do more of that public speaking. And I want to really get to a point where it's kind of a vindictive thing to say, but there's a meme out there that says, make people remember when the first time they met you or when they knew you were going to be successful. Kind of the people that brush you off and then go, "Oh shit, yeah, I know Ed. I always knew he'd do good." No, you didn't. You treated me like shit. And I kind of have this little vindictive piece in me that wants to do so well that people go, "Whoa, I didn't know Ed could accomplish that." So I know we shouldn't be vindictive when we do things like that, but it's a little bit of a driving force for me to continue to work on my speaking and do those things. And I think, like I said, I have a very good a grasp on what I want to talk about. And the people that I have talked about have said this was really something that they could use. It wasn't me selling them something afterwards and saying, if you pay me $4,000, I'll teach you more. I get it all done. I don't charge. I don't charge right now. I don't sell books or CDs or anything like that. So if you have an organization, could be a small company, could be 10 people, could be 10,000. I don't care. I will get up and talk about this and help people kind of get, kind of refocused on themselves. And so they can do a better job in life. So I said something to my friend that I was speaking with the other day, my buddy that wanted to get together with his kids or his dad. And I said, I always want to make sure that when I'm talking, and I say this almost every time I'm on a podcast, that this is not me coming from a helicopter view. This is not me saying, hey, I did this and then I did this and it made things better. That'll happen sometimes, but that's kind of an age thing. I don't want to sit here and tell you that I'm wickedly successful and I got Maseratis outside and I 19 houses and I got one in, I got houses in Hawaii and New York. And I don't have that, right? I'm just like you. Whatever I want, and I'm trying to do better and get. I have done better in the past than I'm doing now. And I would love to make excuses, which is part of my, 4 pillars to my podcast is I can make great excuses. COVID was not my friend, but nevertheless, I think I was kind of weak during COVID and I let things get over on me a little bit and wasn't as disciplined as I should have been. I mean, the reality is I should be fucking 25 right now, just shredded. I had all the time in the world to do it, but didn't do it. So I don't want to come from that area. And I said, and I said to him, you can't master life. He says, that should be the title of your next podcast. You can't master life, right? There's always going to be something going on. You can strive for perfection and you can strive to master life, but I don't think you can ever really do it because just by virtue of you thinking that you've accomplished the most, you're going to have something else. Because if I know most of you, you're all pretty driven. And once you hit here, you're going to want to go to here and then want to go to here. So I think it's a good statement. And it was kind of an accident how it came out. It was just, you can't master life. You can keep trying. And I think you should always be striving to do that. You should be mastering relationships with your spouse or with your kids or at work or wherever. And that kind of goes back to who you're circle of influence is. If you're hanging around people that aren't helping you move forward, you need some new friends. And you don't necessarily get rid of those friends, but you need to spend less time with them, I'll tell you right now. And that could be a spouse or whatever. Now, I'm not condoning divorce, getting out of a relationship or anything like that. That's up to you. Y'all need to work that out on your own. But if you're in a toxic relationship, whether it's with work or with friends or whatever, you need to change that from toxic to good, right? You need to get out of that toxic relationship. Sometimes we have that toxic relationship with ourselves, to be honest with you, and you're telling yourself the wrong things in the morning. You're going back to that storytelling podcast I did where you're telling yourself the wrong story. You really need to just get a piece of yellow paper out and write a line down the middle of it, pros and cons. And what are you telling yourself that's a con, and what are you telling yourself that's a pro? And you need to get rid of those cons. Those are in the past. You can't change those. You can change them tomorrow. You just can't change them from yesterday. So you really need to get out of your mind. I like I've said, I have these notes. It says I feel like there's no interest in me as far as a public speaker, but I disagree with that. I think that the fact that I'm not an expert and I'm not there to be an expert or tell people exactly how to do things is exactly why I should be attractive to people, so we can let people learn on their own. Look, we can teach. When I was in sales, I'm in sales now, but when I was in sales management, I could teach anybody the product, how the product works, things like that. I can't teach people how to be nice people. And if you're a jerk and you go into sales, that's just wrong. You shouldn't do that. If you really like sales, you like the communication, you like those nurturing those relationships and getting to like people and seeing positive things in people, you can sell. And the product piece of it, people should be hiring people, not experts, right? We shouldn't be hiring based on what people know about the product. We should be hiring good people that are going to show up to work, that are going to be positive, that are going to add enthusiasm to the whole system, that are going to do things like that. That's really who we should need to be hiring. And that's who you need to be hanging out with, people that are going to move you forward. This getting into these toxic relationships where, if you're dating somebody and it's just not working out, get the fuck out of the relationship. I don't care what you have to do. If you get them, if you're living with them and you can't afford to move out, figure out a way. Call your mom, call your dad. I don't care what you got to do. That toxic relationship is going to hold you back, and you don't want that. If you have a bad relationship with your child, you need to fix it. I mean, I would assume if you're having a bad relationship with your child, he's over 13 or 14 or she, and these are things you can work out with counseling and things like that. You really need to make sure you're focused on getting rid of those toxic relationships because they will kill you. And, I'm so passionate about making you a better version of yourself and doing whatever I can do. And, I'm probably driving these kids crazy and working with these people, these men and women I'm working with, because I'm constantly giving them, I hope I'm giving them encouraging ways to deal with stuff that's going to happen in the future. And one of the things I tell one of the people that I talk to that I kind of hang out the most with is that they need to trust their instincts more. I think when I was in my 20s, I was very apt to wait for a manager or a so-called leader or whatever to give me guidance when I really had already an intrinsic feeling of what I needed to do, and inside feeling what my instincts. I had an instinctive way about me, and I didn't use that instincts enough. And I think that was wrong. I think that was a mistake. I think I could have been moved forward a lot quicker if I would have used my instincts more and stopped waiting on other people, because what you're getting with other people is just regurgitated information. And it wasn't always good information, by the way, when I look back. And when I look back at those people who I kind of looked up to as leaders and things like that, then they weren't good leaders. On my podcast a few times when I had guests, I would ask them if they remember a teacher or if they ever had a really good leader in their life that helped them a lot. And a couple of them gave me some good answers. But funny enough, for the most part, they could not give me an answer to the leadership piece. And, we're talking about all these books and shit that are written about leadership. And I'm having lunch with a guy tomorrow that just read a leadership book. And I know that because he put it on LinkedIn. And I'm really interested to find out why he thought it was such a good book. My problem is there's so many good leadership books out there, but people are reading them, but they're not acting like good leaders. I mean, look at our government, for Christ's sake. We're as far as I'm concerned, we have in the last 15 years, we've had the worst leadership ever in American history. And I think it's getting worse. I don't know who is leading the charge, but you don't see them on TV. The ones that are seen on TV are, God, they're dopes. I mean, I don't know what the hell where we're at in America, but these I apologize for sniffling, by the way, because it's cold. It's just still hanging on a little bit, but I wanted to get this podcast out. So yeah, so I want to talk to this guy tomorrow and find out. And this guy's a super intelligent guy. I was really a lot of respect for him, and I actually think he's a good leader. I've never worked for him, but I think he'd be a good leader because he's very calm. He's very reserved. He's a thinker. He thinks things through, you know, and he gives you good information, and he's always real positive. So, but yeah, the guy I was talking to the other day that hung out with his kids, that wanted to hang out with his dad, he just thought about it and thought about it. We were at lunch, and he just could not think of somebody that was a good leader. He brought up some teachers that were good, which is always, you know, they're very much leaders, but in business, he could not remember anybody that was a very good leader for him. And that's troubling, really, when you're, you know, trying to come up. He's much younger than me. So as he's coming up to the ranks, he's looking for leadership, or he's going to need to become a leader in his respective business. So, so I kind of want to, I'm almost done here. I know we're up against Christmas right now next week, and whatever you celebrate, whether you celebrate Hanukkah or Christmas or whatever holiday you celebrate, first of all, I really want to make sure that you spend some quality time with your friends and family, and kind of get to rebuild those relationships. If they're good relationships, keep them as just as good or better. If they're bad, make them better. Kind of spend some time on that, and, you know, think about the value of those people have in your life. And I know there's some that it's really hard to see, man. It's really hard to take a person and go, well, you know, they've added this value or whatever. I know it's hard to, but you got to dig. You got to dig a little bit, and see if you can't build those relationships to be better. And don't just do it during Christmas. Keep it going. I mean, I know everybody's going to set these New Year's resolutions. It's always a big joke about this time of the year that I'm going to do this, I'm going to work out, I'm going to do that. I want you to do that. I want you to stick to it. I want you to take baby steps, small steps to get successful. But this building relationships back and making relationships better, this is a lifetime thing. This is that creating that life that's just mastering life. If you can create, and if you can get these relationships square and get better relationships with other people and be around those good people, you will get closer to mastering life. And you need to have laser focus on that. And that's that writing it down and trying to do something every day that's going to help you move a little bit forward. Going back to that, when I was talking to these guys about speaking, the worthiness thing always pops in my head, right? Am I worthy enough to sit in front of 100 business people, whether they make $20 an hour or $200 an hour or $10,000 an hour? I don't care. They all have the same problem that you and I have. I got news for you. They could have tons of money. They're all struggling with self-esteem. They all struggled through COVID. Even the guys that made a lot of money, they still struggle. They struggle getting sick. They struggle with life. They struggle with friends and family that got sick. And so the worthiness, as far as I'm concerned, I'm wholly worthy to do this, and I'm excited to get a chance out there. So like I said, if you know any companies, and I'm not charging anything right now, I go and speak I can do 15, 30, 45 minutes, an hour, about this, about, you know, getting selfish and getting your life squared away so you can nurture people. I am down with doing that. So if you have a company or whatever, or you own a company and you want me to come speak, I'd be happy to do that, especially, and just let me know. I'll do the best I can to make the time work. So it's edfranklin.nolimits@gmail.com. And I have one more question for you. Are things good, right? You ever just look at your life and kind of go, you know, how good are things right now? And I'm not saying perfect. I'm saying, you know, do we have the ability to make our life better? Are we in a situation where with a few tweaks, things could be a lot better? Are we in a funk and we need to kind of, you know, turn a corner a little bit? I mean, that's the question. Are things good? You know, and for me, the answer is absolutely. Things are great. I have a great relationship with my wife. I have this new job. I'm talking to every one of my children. I don't have any animosity towards them, and I hope they don't have any towards me. I know that some of my kids think I could have done a better job, and they'll find out when they have kids. See, we'll see what happens. I don't think they're not doing a good job, but listen, I did things a little bit different and looked back and went, well, that was stupid shit. I would not do things like that again. Are things good? Ask yourself that question. Get that yellow pad of paper out of the white pad of paper, draw a line down, and if something's good, put it on one side. If something's bad, put it on the other. You know, kind of be thankful for that side, the good side, and on the bad side, kind of say, what can I do to change this? Listen, nobody has all the secrets, and I don't care if you're, Grant Cardone or Tony Robbins or Simon Sinek or Brian Tracy. I don't care who you don't have all the answers. You can tell me you have all the answers, and you can charge me for all the answers, but all the answers aren't. And I've told you stories about speaking to speakers to help me be better, and them telling me basically I'm worthless and I have nothing to talk about. Well, I call bullshit on that. I do have a lot to talk about. Probably the best thing I've ever done in my life was have good relationships with people. I don't really hate anybody. I don't have, and this could be, someone could be listening to my podcast going, "Oh, I know people that hate you." Well, that's great. I don't have that animosity towards anybody. I would like to see some people in my life do things a little bit different. But a lot of that's in their control. It's nothing I can do. So look, I guess we're coming on to the holidays. This has been a pretty long podcast. I think I don't time it when I'm doing it. I just kind of do it off the cuff. I'm hoping to have one next week. If I don't, it's because of the holidays and it's just busy. And I might have nothing to say. So I will definitely do one before the end of the year. In fact, I have almost 100 episodes at this point, and I'm hoping to, I don't care if I have 100 or 85, it doesn't matter. I'm just going to call it 100. And the next year, 2023, is going to kick off my 5th season. Now, that 5th season, it's all bullshit. I just make up numbers. I'm in my 4th season now for some reason. I tried to change it to 4. But it'll be my 5th season, and I'll try to start getting my 25 episodes out per season. So by the end of next year, I have 100. And, I want to get at least once a week, so at least 52. I'd actually like to get more than that. I'd like to get 2 a week out, but sometimes I don't have time, and sometimes I don't have content. So as my content grows, as my guest list grows, as my listeners grow, and I can do this more often, and at some point make money, then I'll focus more on it. Maybe it'll be one of those things where that's all I focus on every day, and somebody else can clean the house and pick up dog stuff and that. So anyway, listen, I always say maybe I don't always say it, but I really truly do love all of you. I love you for listening to my podcast. I love you for being in a relationship with me, whether we're friends or whatever. I love that you know things that I don't know, and you're willing to share those with me. I love that you're all my heroes. I could grab each one of you and put my arms around you, and you could tell me something that make me feel like you're my hero. And I don't want to get all mushy because we're coming close to Christmas, but this is such a special time of the year. I love Christmas. I always enjoyed Christmas as a child. My parents did a great job. How they did, I had no idea how they put Christmas together because they weren't wealthy people. And I love the holidays, and I love what it stands for in my life. And, yes, we've commercialized it. Yes, it's religious. Yes, it's all these things. But my memories of Christmas and my experiences at Christmas have always been very positive. And we're having our Christmas Eve party again this year, and I get to see my nieces and nephews again, which I haven't seen in a few years. So lots of positive stuff coming up. Job is going well. I'll tell you more about the job later. It's not really important. The fact is I'm making headway there. I'm very happy with the people I work with. I'm making some really good friends, and I just think we're going to have really long relationships, and I love that. So I tell you, I love you guys. I really deeply love you. And I'd love for you to reach out to me, and it's edfranklin.nolimits@gmail.com. Shoot me an email, say hello, say something, but do something. Send me a text, hit me up on Facebook, LinkedIn, whatever you want to do. I hope you have the most safe and glorious holiday you could have. I hope that you rekindle some relationships and build on the good ones you already have. And I hope that Santa Claus brings you everything you want, and that you're blessed throughout the holidays, and you have a safe and happy New Year. I'm sure I'll have a New Year. In fact, I'll tell you right now, I'm going to have a New Year podcast because it's going to be about you getting off your asses. So I know I go from mushy to calling you getting off your asses, but that's all right. That's what I do. Anyway, edfranklin.nolimits@gmail.com. You can find me on Apple, Spotify, and iHeart, and YouTube. And if you go to YouTube channel, please subscribe to my channel. I hope you have a fabulous week. Stay warm in San Diego. Stay safe in the Northwest. Stay safe wherever you are. And enjoy your time with your family. And we will talk to you soon.